Dun dun dun! Well, hello lovely people, and welcome to the first of my Halloween week videos. Look, I'm wearing black. How off-brand. Subscribe for, not a lot of black clothing in the rest of the year. I'm going to be very honest. If you're here for the black clothing, you're going to be sorely disappointed. In today's video, we're going to be debunking some common misconceptions about witches. For no real reason other than I want to wear this hat. And it's almost Halloween, mainly the hat. We'll be talking about mainly European witches from around 1400 until 1800. Interestingly, many people believe that witches are a Christian invention, but the idea of the witch who flies in the night and draws power from dark forces to work ill will on others actually predates Christianity by many centuries and is seen in cultures around the world, like the fox witches of Japan and the Mankukulam from the Philippines, sorry for butchering that word, or the Navajo skinwalkers from North America, who is depicted as a witch that harms others by disguising itself as an animal. Indeed, there's even a character called Circe in Homer's Odyssey, which is written around 800 BCE, who turns men into animals, who is actually described in text as a witch. Magic and the control of it features really heavily in Roman law statutes, some of which were then passed down to the Christian world and laws. However, many of these early laws were really laws against sorcery, which, unlike witchcraft, can be beneficial and which requires special skills, tools, and words. So they were making laws against the good magic and healing medicine, because who wants to live past the age of 30? My days are numbered. Let's swiftly move on to busting some historical myths about witches instead, and maybe they'll let me make it to my next birthday. Myths. 9 million witches died in the years of the witch persecutions. Now, that is quite a figure. Gasp. Fortunately, it's not true. Or unfortunately, if you're a fan of the dramatic. The main era of the witchcraft persecutions in the Western world lasted from the witch hunts in Savoy, which were about 1427 to 1436, to the execution of Anna Goldie in 1782, who was a Swiss woman who was one of the last people to be executed in Europe for witchcraft. Modern scholarly estimates place the total number of executions for witchcraft in the 300-year period of the European witch hunts in the 5 digits, most roughly between 40,000 and 60,000. It's actually quite a big gap. But the majority of those accused were from the lower economic classes in society, although in rarer cases high-ranking individuals were accused as well. The figure is an estimate because whilst there were meticulous record kept in many cases, it's, almost guaranteed that many people were killed without a proper trial, or we've just lost records because it was a while ago, and witches were all women. I've always grown up thinking that the witch trials were an anti-woman thing, but interestingly, it actually really varies per country. Whilst the clear majority of victims in Germany were women, in other countries it was men who were the primary targets. In Iceland, 92% of the accused were men. In Estonia, 60% were men, and in Moscow, 2/3 of those accused were male. In England, 25% of the accused were male. Witch hunting functioned as a tool to encourage the population to conform to the patriarchal views, but it didn't just target women. And it's worth noting that most of the accusers and those making written complaints against the witches were women, because that's patriarchy at its finest, friends. Witches were actually just pagans. Some films and books like to portray that witches practiced a pagan folk religion that had just been hiding since the coming of Christianity. But this theory actually only caught on in the 1920s, and most witches were executed in the 16th and 17th centuries, which is a really long time to hold out and keep a tradition alive against organised religion. Impressive. In truth, whilst there were and are still a few survivals from paganism, witches and witch hunters alike were Christians and identified as such. Witches were actually midwives. This is the thing that surprised me the most when I was researching. I thought for sure this one was going to be true. Yeah, I've definitely heard this one before. The midwives were just trying to do their jobs and deliver babies, but the mean old men didn't understand the women's world. So they pulled them away, dunked them in the river, and burnt them at the stake. More on that later. But no, actually, the midwives were not only rarely accused, according to the historical documents, they were also more likely to work side by side with the accusers to help them identify witch marks. These are not the marks that you put around your house to stop witches from coming in, also a thing. These were the marks on a body believed to indicate that an individual was a witch. You know, like your second toe being longer than your big toe. Please now check whether or not you're a witch. Congratulations to those of you who are. Please now collect your excellent fuzzy hat to match mine from the link in the description. It's all the fault of King James I. I mean, I'm sure many things are. That's up for his wife and the Duke of Buckingham to decide together. Did also kill a lot of witches. But in his defence, the first Witchcraft Act was actually passed under Henry VIII in 1542 and made all pact witchcraft, which is when a deal is made with the devil, casual, or summoning of spirits a capital crime. And more accused witches were actually executed in the last decade of Elizabeth I's reign, which was 1558 to 1603, than under her successor, James I. So he was bad, but he wasn't the worst. And if you don't want to be sent back to the 18th century, then you need Surfshark, protector of my family's internet and sponsor of today's video. Now, clearly approaching Halloween, we need to get into the spooky season and watch something chilling. I mean, sadly, my family won't be joining me for this one. I mean, Rupert, for obvious reasons. He's 4.5 months old. I'm not paying for those future therapy bills. And Claudia's just too scared of anything remotely resembling horror. I mean, it's true. We can't even watch adverts with jump cuts, so it's just me. One film I've been dying to watch is Winchester, but so typical. It wasn't available here in the UK. Not a problem for me though. Using this video's sponsor, Surfshark, I set my location to the USA and, as if by magic, now I can watch it on Netflix US. No, it is magic. This is a video about witches. Everything is magic. Just go with it. Surfshark's not just playing tricks this Halloween, but all year round. You can hide your identity from websites, apps, and services that want to track you, and yes, you can use it across an unlimited number of devices as a whole family. Now, if you haven't been paying attention in my other videos, what is Surfshark? Surfshark is an app and browser extension that allows you to change your virtual location, ensuring you access to sites, services, and content that you can't usually see. Magic. Surfshark. That's the name. Say it with me. Surfshark. Burn it on your brain. Not literally, sorry. I know we're talking about magic here. You have to be very careful when you talk about magic. Not too literal. Not too literal, people. So click the link in my description to download Surfshark and use the code Jessica for 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so, go. I know! This deal's so good, it'll give you a fright. Bypass the content throttling, government censorship, and the uncomfortable feeling you're being tracked. Probably a familiar feeling if you enjoyed black and pointy hats in the 16th century. Oh, that's completely not true. Please enjoy this great video about witches' hats from dress historian Abby Cox with added Quakerism. It's all the fault of the Spanish Inquisition and the Catholic Church. I know, no guys, come on now. The rest of you don't get off that easy. All 4 of the major Western Christian denominations, that's the Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Calvinist, and Anglican churches, prosecuted witches to some degree. Indeed, England, Scotland, and Scandinavia still had witch trials at a time when their Catholic churches didn't even have a drop of power, and they also burnt their Catholics, so how was it the Catholics? Fun fact, the Spanish Inquisition only executed 2 witches total. That wasn't a fun fact for those 2 witches. Sorry. If you're looking for someone to not blame, Eastern Orthodox churches didn't do lots of witch hunting, so that's nice. Witches were dunked in water to see if they were magic. So the theory goes that if you dunk someone into water and they float, they're a witch and you should execute them. But if they sink and then drown, then they're innocent. Still dead, but they're innocent, so that's nice. But don't worry, it's kind of a myth, because they actually tied ropes to you so they could haul your body back up again, sometimes before you drowned, hopefully. Witches were burned at the stake. Yeah, actually, not in English-speaking countries, apparently. This confused me too, because I was really sure before I started researching that it was like the other way around. But witchcraft was a felony in both England and its American colonies, therefore witches were hanged. hung. They were not burnt. However, witches' bodies were burnt in Scotland, though they were strangled to death first, so that's nice. Millions of innocent people were rounded up on suspicion of witchcraft. The total number of people tried for witchcraft in England throughout the period of persecution was no more than 2,000, as most judges just didn't believe in magic. They did believe in fraudsters attempting to con other people, but once they'd worked out that wasn't what was happening, and it was instead just a case of an old woman just not being very attractive or friendly enough for her neighbours, they just shut that one down because they had better things to do. Like sending a starving orphan to the pillory for eating a loaf of bread. 18th century stuff. Many of the myths about witch hunting are enticing because they enable people to sympathise with the victims. However, we should extend the same understanding to the witch hunters too, who were pretty interesting characters themselves. Many were pious people who believed they were doing the right thing. Completely misguided, obviously. She says with the ease of historical retrospect. I hope you've enjoyed this quick little myth-busting video that I made because I fell down an internet wormhole and bought a witch hat that I need to justify to my wife because apparently to put on my pumpkin isn't good enough. Rude! With thanks to the writings of Professor Diane Purkis and the textbook Demonology and Witch Hunting in Early Modern Europe by editors Julian Goodare, Rita Voldemore and Liv Helene Williamson for this research, because what else is a sleep-deprived new parent who also happens to have chronic fatigue going to do than read snippets of an online textbook about witchcraft? I can't even. Remember to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Click the link in my description to download Surfshark and use the code JESSICA for 83% off plus 3 months extra for free. And have a wonderful Halloween week, which is completely not a thing. Commercialization. Well, let's rage about that another time. For now, goodbye. And I'll see you in my next video when hopefully I have had actual sleep and not just a lot of caffeine. Mwah.